Praise the Lord and welcome to our program, Lies in Our Textbooks, with Pastor Joseph and Osama Doc Duke. Here we are in our series. Today, our episode is entitled Lies About Jihad and Lies About Terrorism in Our Textbooks. Brother Osama, as always, it is a pleasure to have you here
at
ABN with this series. And so we have a little bit of time today and a lot to do. A long way to go in a short time to get there.
So we're going to go a little bit
right ahead.
I'll go a little bit faster and
because everybody knows usually you speak so slowly.
I try.
So go ahead and speak just a little bit faster for us.
All right. So we'll advise our wonderful audience to listen faster. Otherwise, you're going to miss it.
Otherwise, you have to turn down the volume in your computer. Turn down the speed of the audio.
Well, it's a very serious matter. Jihad in our textbooks and terrorism in our textbooks. And we're living today in America to learn about jihad is struggle to do good. Mm-hmm. Jihad is to do good deeds. And terrorism have nothing to do with Islam. As a matter of fact, Muslims just complained last week about this museum we opened in Ground Zero to remember what happened on the wicked day of September 11, as we saw the fruit of Islam in action, as we see the fruit falling from the tree of Islam on us in America. Now, Muslims complain about the word Al-Qaeda or the word Muslim to be mentioned in this 7-minute video. Watch our podcast, and you'll be shocked today to learn about Islam and jihad and terrorism. First, let's talk about Islam and jihad. What do they teach our children in our public schools today in America about jihad? Go ahead, Pastor Joseph.
World Cultures, a Global Mosaic, Pearson Prentice Hall, 2004, page 571. Jihad includes a person's inner struggle to achieve spiritual peace as well as any battle in defense of Islam.
Don't you love that, Pastor Joseph? Jihad is struggle. You know that the only translation to the Quran, the accurate translation, which use the word jihad, is ours. Because they literally put this in there are 39 verses in the Quran mention the word jihad. And the only one who put it right is our translation. But the rest, they put it struggle. And since they lied to us in their sugar-coated Quran and they put jihad to be struggle, then it is struggle. I love it how they teach our children. Jihad is for you in our public school. Work hard to get your A's in your classrooms. And mama performed jihad at home when she cooks the hot meals and cleans the house and clean your clothes. And dad performed jihad when he worked hard to provide money for mama to fix the foods for you to be comfortable in life. That's not jihad. That's not how Muhammad understood jihad. Jihad is not struggle. Jihad is a holy war. We'll move on with another life from another textbooks about jihad in our public schools.
World History, McGraw-Hill, Glencoe, 2008, pages 192 and 193. The Quran permitted fair defensive war as jihad or struggle in the way of God. Muhammad's successors expanded their territory. Who's saying it's fair?
I have no idea. I wonder, once again, Muslims put this propaganda, this hogwash in our textbooks, but they would never give us one war where somebody attacked the Muslims. Somebody attacked Muhammad, and that's why it was right for Muhammad to defend. Or maybe a verse in the Quran. How about one verse in the Quran in jihad where Allah said, fight to defend yourself from the wicked Christian or the ungodly Jew who are bothering you? No, there's not one verse in the Quran. And Lord have mercy, Muslim expanded their territory. You see, here's a problem.
By being defensive.
But when the textbooks in America, because it's written by the Muslim now, talk about Muslims taking over the world, that's expanding the territory. When the textbooks talk about crusades, as we're going to be seeing later, how they were defending the Christian or trying to get back what Muslims take, that is a barbaric cult. This is a barbaric, hateful war. Lord have mercy. We'll move on to another lie in our textbooks, as Muslim wrote our children to say,
World History, Pearson Prentice Hall, 2007, page 306. Another duty is jihad or struggle in God's service. Jihad is usually a personal duty for Muslims who focus on overcoming immorality within themselves. At other times, jihad may be interpreted as holy war to defend Islam and the Muslim community. However, just holy war may be declared only by the community, not by an individual Muslim or small group.
Where can we find this in the history of Islam the last 1400 years? First of all, jihad is not struggle. if you look for the word jihad in the Quran, in all these verses, and read the interpretation of Muslim scholars, not Pastor Joseph and Usama Dakdok, Muslim scholars, you will see that it is a holy war. As they will give you many examples of each one of these verses. That's when Muhammad killed whatever people group, or what, that's when Muhammad attacked whatever city they mention in the Quran. So it's not struggle. Don't believe this lie of Muslim. It is a holy war. And when you say it is a war cannot be called by individual, that is a lie from the bottom of hell. Because I can go with you right now into the history, the past of the existence of Islam, the last 1400 years, and you see jihad was always called by a Khalifa, by Imam, by Osama bin Laden. Did Osama bin Laden meet with all the Ummah, the nation of Islam, and said, hey, Muslim of a 57 Muslim country, what should we do to America? Should we attack America? Or was this a decision by Osama bin Laden, one man? And before Osama bin Laden, many just individual, Pastor Joseph. This is a reality of what Muslims have done.
Quick question for you. When it says Jahada al-Kufar in the Quran, does that mean that the Muslims are to make a meal for the unbelievers?
Of course. When you perform jihad against the infidels, it does not mean feed them a meal. No.
Yeah, okay.
It means kill them.
Okay.
All right. One more book. Let's listen to one more lie in our textbooks, which is taught in America by our tax money to our children and grandchildren about jihad. Go ahead.
World History Connections Today, Prentice Hall, 2001, page 14. In a report on this book titled Islam in the Classroom, What the Textbooks Tell Us, Gilbert T. Sewall, American Textbook Council, New York, 2008. Some Muslims look on jihad or effort in God's service as another duty. Jihad has often been mistakenly translated simply as holy war. In fact, it may include acts of charity or an inner struggle to achieve spiritual peace, as well as any battle in defense of Islam.
Can you imagine, Pastor Joseph? That is what our children in America are learning about jihad. It's not a holy war. It's a mistake. For Usama Dakdok to call it holy war, he's lying to you. No, it's not Usama Dakdok, it's Allah Almighty. It is Muhammad. Yeah. And the proof is, I can open the Quran and I read to you all these verses. Of course, we do not have time in this broadcast to read to you the Quran. That's why we advise you, if you're a Muslim, open your Quran and read what Allah said about jihad. If you're American, non-Muslim, read the Quran and learn the truth about jihad so you can truly know the true meaning of jihad. Jihad is a holy war. It was never as a war for self-defense. Muhammad have never been attacked by anybody to start with. From day one, he was attacking people. He was doing his duty as Allah commanded him to kill people. And that is how he was practicing the pillar of jihad. Do you know, Pastor Joseph, the pillar of jihad is the most important pillar in Islam. You can practice the first 6 pillars, and you die and you go to hell and stay in hell forever. But if you practice the pillar of 7, the pillar of jihad, you are guaranteed to make it to heaven. And it is not, I love how they say charity.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe. You know, I take it back. Jihad is charity. How is that? For a Muslim man to kill a Christian man or a Christian father and to kidnap their daughters, they have to feed them to keep them alive so they can continue to rape them until they may sell them to somebody else. That is the only time where Muslims perform charity as they perform jihad. They kill the parents or the husbands and they kidnap their women and their children and they feed them. That is a charity, so they can use them sexually or sell them for somebody else to make some profit. That is a charity, Pastor Joseph, which Muslims have practiced. A quick response to this topic before we move on to the lie about terrorism.
Declarations of jihad have been made for purposes of violence against Christians, Jews, Americans, British, and any other non-Muslim people since the days of Muhammad.
This is what we need to teach in our public schools about jihad, true history of jihad. All right? Move on to the next piece here.
Jihad has always been declared as an aggressive terror, not for the purpose of defense.
And I would love to see our Muslim friends show us where in the Quran, where in the Hadith, where in the history of Islam, where jihad was used as a self-defense. If there's one verse, I will go with them, Pastor Joseph. They may be telling us the truth.
Yeah.
But move on, next one.
Many individuals claiming to represent various Islamic groups, large and small, have declared jihad.
That's the reality. There's no such a thing as a big number of people a community decision. No, just one person at a time.
Doctrinal jihad, as described by Muslim scholars, as stated in the Quran, Hadith, and Sunnah, has only one meaning: holy war.
Next point.
Islam was a cult spread by the sword of conquest, not self-defense.
And one more piece, Pastor Joseph.
Islamic commanders were ruthless and cruel, conquering lands from the Christian Holy Land to parts of Eastern and Southern Europe. Constantinople, the former capital of Eastern Roman Empire, the Christian land, was conquered by the Islamic Turks, and the Church of St. Sophia was turned into a mosque.
This is the reality. You can go right now and visit the mosque.
Obama did.
Yes, indeed, he did. He had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
A little bit more true history we should teach about Islam in our textbooks. Go ahead, Pastor Joseph.
Muslims conquered Jerusalem and built a mosque, the Dome of the Rock, on the foundations of the Temple of Solomon.
And
the Jewish and Christian populations were known as dhimmi, had inferior status to Muslims, had few rights, and had to pay additional oppressive taxes. The tax is known as jizya.
I have to say this, Pastor Joseph, that when we read the Quran, you see the jihad interpreted by Muslim scholars to be holy war. And there are 79 verses in the Quran where Allah mentions the word war. Engage in war, go fight, whatever you want to call it. And in the interpretation of Muslim scholars, to all these verses where the word war was mentioned, we're not talking about jihad now, we're just talking about verses mention the word war. It is always interpreted by a Muslim scholar, holy jihad.
Yeah.
So jihad is war, and war is jihad all over the Quran. For example, let's read this verse, Quran chapter 2, verses 2:16 to 2:18. Listen to what Allah said in the Quran.
War is decreed to you, and it is hated by you, and perhaps you may hate something that is good for you, and perhaps you love something that is evil for you, and Allah knows and you do not know. They ask you concerning war in the forbidden month. Say, engaging in war in it is big.
Big mean it is sin. But listen to the rest of the word. Allah said,
and to prevent others from the way of Allah, and to become an infidel in Him and the forbidden mosque, and to get its people out from it is bigger with Allah. And the sedition is bigger than the killing. And they still engage in war with you until they apostate you from your religion, if they can. And whoever apostates among you from his religion, so he is to put to death as an infidel.
So the 4 forbidden months were forbidden for people to fight. But to forbid people from going to the mosque, as Muhammad declared to be his mosque, is greater. Therefore, Allah commands the Muslim to go in war. And then he said, well, they will fight. Literally, nobody fought Muhammad. But he said, Muhammad tells his people, well, if you don't go and fight them and kill them, they will fight you until they turn you back to infidelity. But the reality is, there's nobody fought Muhammad. He left Mecca with his freedom, came back to Mecca, and he killed everybody else in Mecca. Last piece of this verse, verse 2:18, Pastor Joseph, if you don't mind, you read this last piece, and that will end our study about what the Quran teach about killing, which is jihad in Islam.
So those, their works will be voided in the world, in this world and the hereafter, and those are companions of the fire, and they will abide in it forever. Surely those who had believed and those who immigrated and performed jihad for the sake of Allah, those hope for Allah's mercy, and Allah is forgiving and merciful.
I wish our American legislators and our American senators and the governors and all the authorities in this country understand the nature of immigration in the Quran. There are 11 verses in the Quran, 11 verses where Allah mentions the word immigration. And it goes like this: those who believed and then immigrate, and the third one, listen carefully, America, and perform jihad. These students who are coming to America, they are immigrating to America, and they are Muslim believers, that they will come, they and their children in America, they will perform jihad. Pastor Joseph, we have to move on to the next one, which is lies about terrorism.
Okay.
And I believe terrorism is jihad, and jihad is terrorism, because that's how Muslim will fulfill the duty before Allah.
And of course, what you're pointing out is the secular media as well as Muslims would completely separate the two.
Oh, absolutely. They don't want to, and not this separates them from Islam.
Yes.
They will say jihad have nothing to do with Islam.
No, terrorism has nothing to do with Islam.
And terrorism have nothing to do with Islam.
Yeah.
But jihad is Islam, and terrorist act is the duty of every Muslim, as we will see in the verses of the Quran. I'm not going to say it my own word, let Allah tell you about Allah, let Allah tell you about His angels, let Allah tell you about His Muslims, those who practice terrorism in America and around the world. All right, first let's look at some of the lies taught in our public schools about terrorism.
World History, Thompson, Wadsworth, 2004, page 830. What were the sources of Muslim anger? Bin Laden declared that the 9/11 attacks were a response to the humiliation and disgrace that have afflicted the Islamic world for over 80 years, a period dating back to the end of World War I.
Really? That's why they attack us on September 11, because, wait a minute, what about all the terrorism which has been accomplished by Muslims who came before America even exists?
Absolutely.
What are you going to call them? They're not practicing what Allah commanded them in the Quran? All right, let's move on to another lie in our history.
World History, The Human Journey, Modern World, Houghton, Mifflin, Hout, Reinhardt, and Winston, 2005, page 808. Terrorism in the Middle East. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine has been used by some to justify the horrendous acts of terrorism committed by a few fanatics.
Fanatic Muslims.
Yeah.
Just few. You know, I love it how the media in America tell us, well, 80% of the Muslims are wonderful, loving, peaceful Muslims. And 20%, few fanatics, 20%. Do you know what 20%? First of all, 20% is a lie.
Yeah.
But I will go with the liberal 20%. What is 20%? This few fanatics of 1.5 billion.
That's a lot.
300 million America. Yeah. 300 million Muslim right now. Many of them live in America and around the world who love death than life. And we teach our children just few. Just few. Well, I wish we have time to go more about that in depth. But how about another lie in another textbook?
World History, Modern Times, Glencoe, 2006. From Islam in the Classroom, What the Textbooks Tell Us. Gilbert Sewell, American Textbook Council, 2008. Pages 24 and 25. Terrorism has been practiced since ancient times. In the modern period, one example occurred in Russia, and in the late in the late 1800s, when radical reformers bombed trains or assassinated officials to fight the Tsar's repression. Yeah, the causes of recent world terrorism are complex.
That's very complex, but it's been for a long time. And we mentioned about this attack in this train, but forget about what Muhammad did in the last 1400 years and his people. Yeah. All right, continue with this lie in the same textbooks as we continue to read here.
Some analysts say this terrorism is rooted in the clash of modern and Islamic cultures. They argue that because many states in the former Ottoman Empire did not modernize along Western lines, Muslims have not accommodated their religious beliefs to the modern world.
How in the world does these people who are teaching this, I hope there is a good school teacher listening to us right now. Do you really read this to your student? How foolish you are to read this to our student. How can you make this mix the Islam teaching with the modern world? How are you going to put them together in a cup? Will you drink a cup of poison, half Coke and half poison? I mean, what is this?
Well, see, this is actually an admission of guilt, because what they're saying is the Muslims should give up their original beliefs that Muhammad taught them, and they should accept the Christian beliefs of the modern world, which is peace and love.
And you know how many how many liberal in America, they call this reform Islam.
Yeah, right.
You cannot reform
No.
Islam. Reform is to go back to the original.
Yeah.
The biggest crime the liberal in America are committing against us here in America and against the world is to play this game of reforming Islam. Because what we're going to do, Pastor Joseph, is this. We're going to ignore all the teaching of the Quran, which teach terrorism, as we're going to read some of them in a few minutes here. And then we allow Muslims to prosper in America. After all, we're not going to act now what Allah taught in the Quran, because we're going to pretend that these verses don't exist. And I promise you, 50 years from now, all it takes is one Muslim imam in America said, let's do a real reform. Which means what? Let's go back to the Quran. Let's see what Allah commanded us to do. Well, 50 years from now, there will be a good 50 to 100 million Muslims in America. Now kiss America goodbye this fast. Why? Because they got all the weapon, all the men needed to destroy the America. I believe the right thing to do is right now, stop Islam, expose Islam, teach what the truth, what Allah taught the Muslim about terrorism to our children, to our people, so we can save America. This reforming is literally the great fire American play with their hand, and they will burn by it in the near future. One more piece here.
Other analysts note that the Christians and Muslims have viewed each other with hostility at least since the time of the Crusades. Others suggest that poverty and ignorance lie at the root of the problem. Extremists find it easy to stir up resentment against wealthy Western societies. Finally, some say terrorism would be rare if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict could be solved.
This is not brainwash only.
So there was no
This is-
Islamic terrorism before 1947?
Absolutely.
None at all?
No, they were loving, peaceful. But notice that they said this conflict is between Christians and Muslim for years. They start with Christians.
Yeah.
We are the problem. And then they're telling us that this problem is because it's poverty. Did you hear John Kerry last week? The problem we have in Boko Haram in Nigeria, this wonderful Muslim people are poor. So how are we going to fix it, Mr. Kerry?
Let's give them all our money.
Gives them money and
Yeah.
gives them weapons.
Yes.
You know what?
That'll
That's what we're
fix
doing in
it.
Egypt. Let's give them 1.5 billion,
Yeah.
like we give to Egypt, and send them F-16 and F-18 and tanks and still worship, and then it's going to be so peaceful in Nigeria.
That'll solve it.
That will solve the problem.
And Sesame Street in Arabic.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
put some Sesame Street in Arabic.
That'll help.
But yes, indeed. Let's quick answer some of this propaganda which is taught right now in our public schools in America about terrorism. God have mercy. Here's
Osama bin Laden was a Muslim international murderer and terror master.
He was not a freedom fighter as some college in California calling him. All right, next.
Muslims' terror against Israel, America, and its allies enjoys broad support among Islamic states and Palestinians.
Next.
Acts of terror are frequent, and the responsibility of stateless groups like Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood, Hezbollah, Al-Shabaab, and their state sponsors Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Somalia, Syria, Sudan, and Iran.
These are just few names I put, Pastor Joseph, because to be
Boko
realistic,
Haram.
how about the rest of the 57 Muslim countries? I promise you. How about Europe? We can add England and France and Germany to this list as we see in the next few years.
America.
And then it's going to be it's going
We're
to be
supporting terrorism in Syria.
Absolutely. Next.
Islamic terror often has nothing to do with the Arab-Israel conflict, but it is an attack against Jews, Christians, and non-Muslims.
And the proof is this is what has been taking place in planet Earth from the days of Muhammad.
The role of Islam in global terror is minimized, yet Islamist jihadism is generally recognized as the central force behind worldwide terrorism.
Now, I'm going to say something I know is going to shock some of our audience who are listening to this right now. We only have 5 minutes to go. And in this 5 minutes, I'm going to read to you 6 verses in the Quran. 6 verses. In these verses, we'll find out who is the terrorist according to Allah's word. I'm going to just tell you right now here. Allah is a terrorist. Muhammad is a terrorist. Muslim believers are terrorists. Allah's angels are terrorists. That's not my word. That's Allah's word in the Quran. Go, open your Quran, my dear Muslim friends. Read it. Hello, America. Read it and learn the truth about Islam before it's too late. First verse come from Quran chapter 3 and verse 151. Listen to Allah's word in the Quran.
We will cast terror into the hearts of those who became infidels because they partner other gods with Allah, which He did not send down with any sultan, and their abode is the fire, and evil is the place of the unjust.
Who is we here, Pastor Joseph?
Allah
Himself.
Yeah.
So Allah is the one in the Quran is telling us we will cast terror into the heart of the infidels. This is no stranger to the Muslim. Muslim knows that very well that Allah is a terrorist. When you cast terror into the heart of the infidels, Christian and Jews, now we know for sure that Allah is the source of all what happened or what's happening the last 1400 years, including September 11. Okay? How about this next verse? That's Quran chapter 8, verse 12.
When the Lord, your Lord, revealed to the angels, I am with you, so make firm those who believed. I will cast a terror into the hearts of those who became infidels. So strike above their necks, decapitation, strike off, chop off every finger from them.
Allah is speaking to His angels. Allah is a terrorist speaking to His angels to encourage, to strengthen, to give what all the believers, not radical Muslims, I'm getting sick and tired of us in America using the word radical and moderate. No such a thing is radical as there is no such a thing moderate. They are Muslims, believers, to do what? To cast the terror into the heart of all the infidels, Christians and Jews and everyone who does not believe in Islam. And they will strike the necks, decapitate, and cut every fingers, every hand, every legs, as Muhammad taught us in the Quran. That's what he did to all the disbelievers. Now, if we look at the screen here, Quran chapter 8, verse 60, I know if you look at the right corners, there's a logo there. That is the logo of the brotherhood. You have two swords. The right word is al-ikhwan, which means brother. Al-Muslimun means the Muslim brother. And the top of the two swords, you see the Quran. Below it is the word wa'a'iddu. What is the word wa'a'iddu? It's an Arabic word for and prepare. Muslim brotherhood brought this logo because they believe in the Quran. This is not something they made up. That's Allah's word, and prepare. And listen carefully to the command of Allah to every Muslim believer about terrorism.
And prepare for them whatever power you can, and of the tying of horses, strike terror into the enemy of Allah and your enemy and others. Without them you do not know them. Allah knows them. And what you spend from anything for the sake of Allah, it will be repaid to you, and you will not be dealt with unjustly.
It is a double invitation. For the Muslim to prepare, of course, what horses have to do with America today, that was in Muhammad days, horses and camel, okay? Now we're talking about airplane and tanks and bombs, which thanks to President Barack Hussein Obama, he will send them all what they need, all right? They don't have to make it. We just make it and give it to them as a gift.
Yeah.
Now, strike the terror is a command of Allah to every Muslim believers. And also Allah here is talking to those, the second group, who are spending. There are some rich Muslims, and we in America are making them rich by buying their oil or buying their goods, which now all over Walmart and every stores in America. Have you seen lately what you're buying in some of the stores in America? Where it's made? It's made in the Muslim world. So we're making them rich, and then they're going to spend from their money, the zakat, to kill, to terrorize the Jew and the Christian. And Allah will reward them for that. See, Allah, the terrorist, is encouraging the Muslim terrorist to prepare to terrorize the Christian and the Jew and to kill anyone and everyone who does not believe in Islam.
So you believe that's taken directly from Surah 860?
Absolutely.
Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is the word.
It is, and prepare. Ask any Muslim brotherhood, what do you mean wa'a'iddu? What do you mean and prepare? That's Allah's word, Quran chapter 8, verse 6.
Okay.
One more verse, Pastor Joseph.
Surah 33, 26 to 27. And he brought down the people of the book who backed them from their strong places and cast the terror into their hearts. A group of them you are killing, and a group of them you are taking captive. And he made you to inherit their land and their homes and their money, and a land which you have never set foot on, i.e. USA.
Now,
and Allah was mighty over all things.
Amen. Allah is mighty over all things. That's true. What we learn from this verse? Allah is the one who cast the terror. And by the way, Quran chapter 33, verse 26, 27 is talking about Bani Qurayza. These are the people whom Muhammad and his wonderful Muslim believers killed, between 700 to 800 men. And they took, a group of them are killing the male, anyone who have mustache and older, and a group of them you're taking as captive. These are the women and the children. And then he said that they inherited their home, their land, and their money. And obviously, America is coming next, because now Muslims are in America. That is what he meant, a land you have never set foot on. The rest of the world, which Muhammad knew at his time, America can be added to it.
We're about out of time. Bro.
Absolutely, I know. We're going to go 2 more verses and we'll finish.
Surah 459:2, he is who drives out those who became infidels from the people of the book from their homes in the first gathering. You did not think that they would come out, and they thought that that their hisun or fortresses would defend them from Allah. So Allah came to them from where they did not reckon, and he cast terror into their hearts. They demolished their houses with their hands and the hands of the believers. So take lessons, O you who are substantial of the sight.
Here Allah is telling again in the Quran, he is the one who cast terror into the heart of the infidels. Last one, this is a shocking one. Why? Because in the same chapter, that's chapter 59, verse 13, we learn about the strength or the might of the Muslim believer comparing to the might of Allah of casting terror. Listen to the final verse from Quran, chapter 59 and verse 13.
You are a great terror in their chests than Allah. You are greater terror in their chests than Allah. This is because they are a people who do not understand.
Can you imagine? Allah in the Quran is telling the Muslim believers that they are greater terror than Allah Himself.
Hum akbar orhabi.
This is Islam, America. This is terrorism in the Quran. I did not make it up. This is exactly what Allah taught us in the Quran. 6 verses about terrorism. Allah is a terrorist. His angels are terrorists. Muhammad is a terrorist. Muslim believers are terrorists. And now we found out, 59:13, Quran chapter 59:13, that actually Muslims are greater terror than Allah. And you tell me terrorism have nothing to do with Islam? Lord have mercy.
Thank you, Brother Osama. What a wonderful program. It's very clear indeed. I pray that everyone in the United States of America, and yes, the whole world, will watch these programs. Here we are at the Trinity Channel, www.trinitychannel.com and ABN. And we thank Brother Osama.
Thank you.
Coming from thestraightway.org. We'll be right back with you soon with our next episode, another lie from our textbooks about Islam. God bless you until next time.